All right, good morning. Community Voice, NewsTalk 1330 WLBB. Adam Uglum here in the newsroom, and today's topic of the program is the Occupy Wall Street movement. And I got a lot to get through. I didn't realize how much I had typed up until just a minute ago when I actually printed off my work here, and I've got 4 pages here with very small margins. So better keep moving. Let's cut the music off here and let's get going. If you're not familiar with the Occupy Wall Street movement, I guess here is your crash course. So we live in interesting times. Interesting times we live in indeed. I have to talk about this Occupy Wall Street movement. It's getting so far beyond ridiculous. I'm not sure whether I'm living in reality or some kind of strange alternate universe where everything that once made sense now makes none and vice versa. If you've read or seen anything in the media about the event, you likely know about as much as I do. The message of these petulant teenagers and aging hippies, to quote a local resident, is vague. Ultimately, this crowd is a bunch of anti-capitalists, anti-Federal Reserve, anti-Wall Street, and anti-everything as far as I can tell. They stand for nothing and everything all at the same time. They demand vague things like Wall Street reform, stronger communities, free health care, free universities, tearing down Wall Street. What's funny is these kids don't even know what Wall Street is. Do they know that a third of the city's tax revenue comes from Wall Street? They wouldn't have a nice park to hang out in if they didn't have Wall Street, or it may not be as nice. But corporate taxes account for about 10% of the federal government's total tax intake, so about $190 billion. And this is an article I'd like to read from you, and this comes from Forbes. Go ahead, occupy Wall Street until your heart is content, but could you please be a little more specific on who or what you're angry at? Are you angry at the sell side of Wall Street, the buy side of Wall Street, financial advisors, retail traders, mutual funds? How about the sales traders or the execution traders? The market traders? The flow traders? What about the research analysts, the quants, the high-frequency traders, the administrative assistants, the human resource departments? Which parts of Wall Street are you angry at? The IT departments, the prime brokerage sales, the risk managers? I'm confused as to which part of Wall Street you're actually angry about. Do you even know the difference between the sell side and the buy side, or is it everyone you're angry at, and you're just taking the lazy shortcut and calling the whole group Wall Street because you failed on your own to take the time to really understand the industry which you're protesting? You do realize that it's not much different than generalizing an entire population, and in this case, industry, because of the crimes or ethical miscues of a few. As your occupation of Wall Street continues, you may want to grasp a few things. First, it's not going to change anything in the short term, and probably not much in the long term either. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but money makes the world go round, and Wall Street is all about money. Second, the top traders, banks, and hedge funds are still going to out-earn and generate substantial profits from speculating on the disconnects in the prices of things generated from all the moving parts in the global economy, and it has nothing to do with why you lost your house or job or can't find a job. If anything, the successful ones are helping you, your pension funds, your retirement savings, and the economy in general. If Wall Street stops, the world stops. Period. As I said in previous posts, this according to the author, the people didn't create the game. They're just playing it. The good part is that they're still going to pay their taxes, employ others, and spend money so that others will benefit from that on some level. More importantly, they will remain beacons of success and reminders to us and future generations of what true capitalism means. And that's just a bit of the article that I read the other day on Forbes. And most people, you certainly wouldn't expect a bunch of people who live in fantasy land to know what it is, what Wall Street is. And that is generally what I call leftists, statists, communists, socialists. They all live in fantasy land. Everyone on that side of the spectrum is full of ideologues who think that utopia on Earth is possible. The sad, cold, and hard truth is that utopia is not something reserved to this world, but is reserved to the next. To those who are allowing your faces to be plastered all over the media as you dance around acting angry, I'm pretty sure you've made yourself even more unemployable than you were before the Wall Street occupation. I'm not sure it's a smart move on your part, and I know the rest of you are all thinking it, so there, I said it. They all live in this magical world where they think that somehow this time communism or socialism isn't going to be greedy. There's this talk about greed. Well, we have to ask, what is greed, for starters? Do we not think that China is greedy? Was the Soviet Union not greedy? What about the socialist parties in Britain that have bankrupted that country? Are they greedy? We're all greedy. We don't like to admit it. To us, the only greedy person is the other. We're never greedy. It's only the other person who's greedy. A lot of the ongoing conversation at Occupy Wall Street, which is funny because it's actually in Liberty Park. It's actually a few blocks from Wall Street. But the Occupy Wall Street, the conversation going on there is about the relationship between Washington, D.C. and corporate America, which is something I can actually get along with. Now, stay with me here. I don't want to lose you. There are actually a few points that these misled hypocrites are purporting that are completely valid, I think. One of those points is that corporations buy political power, and you're darn tootin' they do, just like anyone else. What they fail to realize is that this is a multifaceted and precarious situation in that they blame corporations' close relationship with the bailouts, the debt, the unstable economy, and so on and so forth. However, economics is a lot more complicated than the workings of corporations and banks. Government also has a stranglehold on the economy, of varying scale and scope in any economy, depending on which country you're in, and the public sector unions, especially here in the U.S., also play a very large role in political power purchasing. Billions of dollars of pro-labor and left-wing money flows to political campaigns all over the country. Many of the protesters want to re-elect the president, which I find a bit contradictory, because here they are protesting Wall Street, and the president's campaign was largely bankrolled by big Wall Street executives. Here's a list for you from OpenSecrets.org. The University of California, the biggest donation at $1.6 million. Goldman Sachs, second biggest donation at $1 million, and they get smaller and smaller as the list goes on. But this entire list is above $500,000 in donations, and here are a few. Microsoft, $0.8 million. Google, $0.8 million. J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Time Warner, Sidley Austin LLP, Stanford University, National Amusements Incorporated, Scotton Arps et al., I'm not sure what company that is, Columbia University, UBS, AG, IBM Corp., GE, big surprise there, Morgan Stanley, and Latham & Watkins, all big on the stock market corporations, all donating big bucks to the president that they want to re-elect to tear down Wall Street. Very interesting, I think. So, according to the left, it's okay for left-wing billionaires, celebrities, organizations, universities to purchase political power, but it's not okay for Wall Street, banks, and businesses. Honestly, I'm having a hard time finding the logic here, but it's probably shouldn't be a surprise, since generally leftists and statist arguments are typically based in illogical assumptions, utopian ideals, and fallacy. They all believe in this perfect world that would never happen. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that Otto von Bismarck in the Second Reich in Germany had a national healthcare system. He also had a national social security system. And you can listen to Otto von Bismarck, and you can look that the Second Reich isn't around because of these welfare programs that Otto von Bismarck created. As a matter of fact, they bankrupted the country, disincentivized work, and Otto von Bismarck created the programs, and I quote, to control the people. If the people are dependent on the government for health care and their retirement, what are they going to do to protest you? Because you could overthrow the government, and then what happens to their obligation to pay you for your retirement and your national health care? I mean, this is the late 1800s. We had Social Security. Well, there was a Social Security program and the National Health Care program in the Second Reich in Germany. But it was to control the people, according to the guy who created the programs, or at least championed them. Our current president received more donations from employees of investment banks and hedge funds than from any other sector, with Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs, and J.P. Morgan Chase among his biggest sources of support. Individual donors included Ken Griffin, the multi-billionaire founder and chief executive of Chicago-based Citadel Investment Group, one of the world's biggest hedge fund companies, according to the UK's Financial Times, reported in July 17th of 2007. Staff at banks in Silicon Valley, technology companies, and universities, just those three sectors topped the list of contributors to Obama's record campaign treasure chest of $640 million. Now, just those industries, banks, technology companies, and universities, contributed a total of $406 million, two-thirds of one of the biggest war chests in history for a campaign. We'll be back from the break and talk about this disconnect from reality, this disconnect from truth and fact, whatever you want to call it when it comes to this whole Occupy Wall Street movement. If you'd like to call in, please feel free to do so. The number here is 678-601-8255. Lots to talk about, and really getting behind this Wall Street movement and some of the hypocrisy that's going on here when it comes to this. We'll return after the break. The show brought to us by Tanner Health System. It's currently 62 degrees. You're listening to Adam Uglum on the Community Voice. We'll be right back.
Because of you, folks who find the experience of a traditional MRI too confining have a comfortable solution. Open MRI at Tanner Health System. Tanner Medical Center Carrollton now offers open MRI services with an almost 360-degree opening. Children, adults, and anyone who feels claustrophobic in a traditional MRI system will find Tanner's new high-field open MRI an inviting alternative. Open MRI joins Tanner's traditional MRI services, keeping high-caliber diagnostic imaging convenient and close to home. For more information on open MRI services at Tanner, speak with your physician. To learn more, visit tanner.org or call 770-214-CARE.
Because of you, we're here.
Tanner Health System.
Good morning, and we're back. Big, deep breath. I'm very excited. You need to take a chill pill. This is a very passionate topic for me, and you'll learn why here pretty soon. It's 8:42. Good morning. You're tuning into the Community Voice program. Welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, we're talking today about Occupy Wall Street and therein the hypocrisy and the contradictions within it. And as before we went to the break, I was mentioning this big disconnect from reality, this disconnect from truth or fact. All these kids, these petulant teenagers and aging hippies, as I'll quote a resident that I interviewed over the course of the weekend, they're campaigning against the very system which enables them to protest in the manner in which they're protesting. Without a free enterprise-based, representative, and relatively honest government, they wouldn't be allowed to do what they do. I find it rather funny that many of these people on the left probably hate the CEOs of Merrill Lynch, Target, Walmart, and otherwise, but they have no problem mourning the death of Steve Jobs, God rest his soul, the founder and former CEO and chairman of one of the largest and most profitable corporations on the planet. They have no problem mourning him. Well, he provided them with the iPod and the iPad and the iPhone, all very... To me, it seems like very, I guess, leftist technology. It seems to be kind of the creative crowd that follows that, and they tend to be a little bit on the left side. But people are leaving flowers outside of Apple stores all around the country, which is a very touching thing. But I just find it rather funny that I imagine a lot of the same people who are dropping these flowers by believe that the rich shouldn't earn more than $1 million a year, or that companies shouldn't make money, or whatever kooky nonsense they come up with. I mean, at certain times, Apple Corporation saw profits of 40 to 60% on its products and services for years. But yet, these on the left, these statists, these socialists, it's all those oil companies that only average 7 to 12% profits that are the greedy ones. I don't understand it. There's an interesting disconnect. And I'm going to outline the disconnect for you here when it comes to this whole political connection between corporations and D.C. that people are so angry about. Well, this is from Red State. Eric Erickson wrote this, actually. The Democrats rallying to the hippies occupying various streets around the country have seized on a Bloomberg News story about Koch Industries doing business in Iran. And the Koch brothers are certainly the target of Democrats and leftists all over the country. Democrats want every Republican who has ever taken money from the Kochs to give that money back. Except there are a few problems, such as, other than it being a political hint against some right-of-center billionaires, the story doesn't seem to have proven or uncovered much of anything. Koch Industries did not directly do business in Iran. A subsidiary did business in Iran. It was legal at the time to do so. When Koch found out about it, however, it did shut that subsidiary down. No laws were broken in the process of putting people to work. But wait, there's more. You see, there's a number of companies that kept doing business in Iran, and several of those companies gave thousands of dollars to Democrats. Well, that's interesting. How a Democrat wouldn't accept money from a business that does business in Iran, much less a corporation. If the GOP needs to give money back to Koch because it did business in Iran, what about all the Democrats? And here's a list. And just to give you a few examples, Dick Durbin took $2,000 from 3M $10,000 from GE, $4,500 from Hewlett-Packard, Honeywell, $11,000, J.P. Morgan Chase, $5,000. In total, Dick Durbin took $34,000 in money from corporations that did business in Iran. Harry Reid took in total almost $60,000 from companies who did business in Iran. Chuck Schumer, in total, took about $28,000. Nancy Pelosi, about $70,000. Steny Hoyer, bankrolling this Iranian business operatives at $145,000 in campaign contributions, and D.W. Schultz took in $40,000. Various Democratic organizations from all of the same companies, or received donations from all of the same companies, totaling almost $1 million. $300,000 in one, $350,000 in another, so $650,000, a little over $500,000. All in companies that did direct business in Iran. And, well, for one, Democrats taking donations from corporations? What is this? What is this alternate reality I live in? I thought Democrats didn't like corporations, didn't like political ties to corporations. Corporations are evil and don't need profits. Well, if they profited less, wouldn't Democrats receive less donations from these profitable companies? It's just kind of a contradiction I'm kind of noticing here. But it's not okay for the Coke industries to be politically active or for Target to donate money to a political campaign, but it's certainly okay for 3M, Caterpillar, Exxon, GE, Hewlett-Packard, Honeywell, J.P. Morgan Chase, Tyson, and other companies to donate money to Dick Durbin, Harry Reid, Chuck Schumer, Hoyer, Pelosi, all these very prominent, very left-wing Democrats in Congress. It's okay for those companies, but not for Coke Industries for some reason. I don't understand where this weird disconnect is. Oh, and George Soros, he's got a felony that has just been upheld in Europe. Well, shouldn't the left give back all the money that he's given out? This guy's given out billions of dollars to various nonprofits all over the country. Media Matters, you name it. He's got hundreds and hundreds of 401c3 or 501c3s, and other 501s under his name, PACs, various other types of institutions that he's got from his purse. The Bloomberg-Washington Post debate is coming up, and only the Washington Post has treated the Bloomberg story with any legitimacy, and no doubt the GOP is probably walking into a rigged debate, but it is their choice. The bigger issue is that, again, the left wants to bash the Koch brothers while ignoring that their own politicians have gotten a lot of money from many companies that stayed in Iran after Koch stopped doing business there. So while the hippies are out protesting Wall Street, they might want to note the amount of money some major corporations have put into Democrat pockets, or is the hypocrisy thing all smoke and mirrors? And that comes from Red State. We'll come back from the break and wrapping up the show today. We're talking about Occupy Wall Street and this kind of hypocrisy. The message is really unclear, so it's hard to touch on what they really mean, but I do definitely get the impression there's kind of a solid foundation of anti-capitalism and anti-corporate and political connections in Washington, D.C. It's a big deal. We'll be back after the break. Tanner Health System provides us with the opportunity here. Again, if you'd like to call in, the number is 678-601-8255. We'll return.
Because of you, folks who find the experience of a traditional MRI too confining have a comfortable solution. Open MRI at Tanner Health System. Tanner Medical Center Carrollton now offers open MRI services with an almost 360-degree opening. Children, adults, and anyone who feels claustrophobic in a traditional MRI system will find Tanner's new high-field open MRI an inviting alternative. Open MRI joins Tanner's traditional MRI services, keeping high-caliber diagnostic imaging convenient and close to home. For more information on open MRI services at Tanner, speak with your physician. To learn more, visit tanner.org or call 770-214-CARE.
Because of you, we're here.
Tanner Health System.
Good morning, we are back. Coming back from the music very quickly, I do have a phone call. Caller on line 2. Let's see if I can't mash the buttons in the proper order here. Let's scoot over. Good morning, you're on the Community Voice. Hello.
Hello, Adam. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. What can I do for you?
Good. It's a beautiful day. Well, I was enjoying your monologue there, and it occurred to me that if I may offer a sort of a slightly unique perspective in that I think it'll give people some relatability, and here it is. I've got a son who's in school, a young boy, 11 years old, and he wants to play football, and he wants to play soccer, and he wants to do all these things. He wants to be a Navy SEAL, all this stuff. Yet I can't get him to study and do homework, as all 11-year-old boys are. And you try to explain to him that the reality is, you want to do all those things, but the reality is you need to learn how to read and write and speak and articulate your message and those type things, and mathematics and all that kind of stuff, to do any of those things that he wants to do, all the fun stuff. And it sort of was funny because I compare that to these Wall Street protesters, because they want the iPads, they want free money, they want free jobs, they want free education, but yet they're not willing to accept the realities of what that means and how to obtain those things, or that they're even available to obtain because of capitalism and the free market. So it's kind of a comparison I thought was pretty interesting. So basically, they're acting like a bunch of children.
Well, thanks for the phone call, and I agree. They are acting like children. It's like there's this weird. It's not like there is. There is this disconnect between reality and what these people are purporting.
Oh, there is, and it's Nancy Pelosi came out and said that it's so spontaneous, and she's all excited about it. I'm glad she's saying all that stuff. It just it speaks to her intellect, but the Tea Party guys have scared her. So it's an interesting thing, and I don't know if it's a disconnect or if it's a wanton, assessment, a perverted assessment of what their reality is. I remember as a young boy when I'd lie to my parents to get out of that lie, I'd say another lie, and then another lie. And pretty soon I couldn't differentiate between the lie and the truth. And I think that's where we are in society today. I don't think these people really can, they don't want to. They just absolutely refuse to accept the truth.
I think you made a very good point there. I appreciate the phone call.
Bye.
Yeah, very good points brought up there. And again, the phone number here is 678-601-TALK if you'd like to call in and be part of the program. But again, this gets to the whole point of there's this big disconnect, and I think this is going to backfire against both the president and Nancy Pelosi, whom I know have endorsed this Wall Street protest. I mean, they are openly having sex and selling drugs at this event, and you have the president of the United States endorsing it as a good movement. I think that just brings trouble for the president's campaign coming up this year. These people are majorly anti-capitalist, which is kind of funny because I would argue that we don't even have a capitalist system. I might split hairs with you and say that we have a semi-capitalist system, but we aren't nearly as capitalist as Hong Kong. For example, the economic problem stems from the political problem. And this is what most people don't realize, both on the right and the left. This is something that's fairly new for me, too. In speeches and campaign rhetoric, we're all for free markets until it comes to our market. We don't want our jobs shipped overseas. I would argue that shipping your jobs overseas is a good thing. It's a pretty good lesson learner. Comparative advantage is a good thing if you appreciate and understand economics. If another country can make something more cheaply than we can, they should. Just like we have an advantage with high intellectual items in service sectors. Now, some industry is certainly vital to the national defense, as Alexander Hamilton argued. Hamilton essentially designed our current economy that brought us to where we are today. I think that's since been a little distorted. I would argue that we should support industry here at home, yet we should take a much freer market approach to it. If you want to keep businesses here, don't berate CEOs and multinational corporations. Businesses have no obligation to create jobs. That's not what businesses are in the business of doing. They're in the business of making money. There is nothing immoral about shipping jobs overseas. There are plenty of poor people around the world who deserve opportunity too. Blame the system which chases business overseas with high regulation, high taxes, and not to mention the head of the executive branch, our president, who rails against business and spews anti-capitalist rhetoric almost every day. Our current president and Democrats are very anti-business and for populist reasons. Populists appeal to the people, and I believe that we've got a strong populist movement in current politics. And there's very much demagoguery, lots of allegations, lots of speeches against industry, against this, against that, speeches against the very core of this country. And yet people love him for it. The president is leading the charge against humanity, I would argue. He is leading the charge against success, all the while trying to convince you that he is on your side, when in fact he is on no one's side when it boils down to it. But I'll leave you with this. Here is the fundamental problem. Relying on Washington to fix your problems and the country's problems is a big mistake. The ultimate fixes for this country are going to come from a large collection of individuals who start living below their means, saving money, and by save it I mean invest it, and rely on themselves before relying on their government. I hate to sound like I'm trumpeting Glenn Beck, but the man is absolutely correct in this aspect. He and Dave Ramsey and several other prominent radio guys that I've listened to, and it's kind of hard to find the people that say this, but they are 100% correct when they say that fixing the country starts with the individual. Getting back to rugged individualism, self-reliance, appreciating profit. Profit is a good thing. And I'll probably have to talk about money the next time we meet and why money isn't evil. A lot of you out there probably would agree that money is the root of all evil, when it's not. It is the root of all things good, not the root of all things evil. I've skimmed the topic before, but look for a detailed explanation of the root of money on my website. The website is www.libertariat.wordpress.com. Again, that's libertariat.wordpress.com. It's a blog where I post on occasion, and you can certainly sign up for my email listing, and that way when I do post one of my infrequent posts, I kind of go through spurts. I'll do 3 or 4 posts some days, and I'll wait a week and a half, and you'll see nothing. But there's lots of information on there. Please go to the website. It's libertariat.wordpress.com. Lots of very different thinking on there. It's not your typical right-wing stuff. It's very, very economically founded, very, very right of right founded. It's very libertarian, as I consider myself a libertarian. Please read it and find a new meaning behind money. You'll never think about money the same once you hear my take on it. I promise. Money is the root of all things that are good, and the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, what is money? And that's something I'd like to address on my website. I'm sure I'll do a show about it here in the near future. And I've certainly acquired an appreciation and understanding of money in my experience as a hardworking young individual. I'm 23 years old. I've never not had a job for a period longer than a week or two in between moving across the country. I've never not had a job since I was 14. I started washing dishes when I was 14 at my uncle's restaurant on Saturdays for a couple of hours. By the time I turned 15, started working on a more regular basis, and I always had a job throughout high school and paid for much of my expenses, insurance, cell phone, things like that. And for the last couple of years, I've had 2 jobs at a time. When I lived in Phoenix, I always had a full-time job, if not 2 jobs, where I did some part-time work on the side. Money is not the root of all evil. Money is simply a medium of exchange. I don't want to get too heavy into this because I like to cover it in full detail without giving you some misleading approach as to what money is, but really, sit down and think objectively about what money is, and we'll draw some conclusions the next time we talk. But I hope you enjoyed the program. Again, the website is www.libertariat.wordpress.com. Spell it like it sounds, libertariat.wordpress.com. You can find my readings on there. Please subscribe to the email letter. Whenever I post, you'll get a message in your inbox. That way you don't have to check the website frequently. I've got about 15, 20 subscribers. I hit a record views last week at about 112 views from my previous record of about 40. So trying to post more, trying to get more frequent, but 2 jobs and school keeps me awfully busy, so it's a little tough. I will publish my program notes. When I bother to type up program notes, and I do bother to also publish them on my website as people are interested in reading those if they can't get audio of the program. I will make audio of this program available, and I'll certainly get that to you as well. I'll share it on Facebook, and you can check it out on there. I'll probably upload it to YouTube like I did one of my previous shows. So look on the website for things like that. You can also find me on Facebook. My name's Adam Uglum. I'm pretty open, pretty public about my personal life. That's just how I am. Thanks for tuning in. It's a minute before the top of the hour. Your national headlines are coming up next. Hope you enjoyed today's program and you now have a little insight into the hypocrisy on the Occupy Wall Street movement. Look, every group's got some valid points, even the far left fringe, but I think it's going to backfire on the president and whichever prominent Democrats are supporting this event. 700 people were arrested at this event, and they called it a good thing. People are having sex out in the open, drugs. I mean, you can buy heroin for $10. I guess that's a pretty good deal.
WLBB, Carrollton.